Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Podcast, where we help you unlock your potential freedom through land investing, real estate investing, and entrepreneurship. Hey everyone, this is episode 140 of the Real Estate Investing Podcast, discussing making extra profit through subdividing land. I'm your host, Daniel Apke, joined again by my brother and business partner, Ron Apke. Before we get into the show, let's go over a question from one of our featured Discord members. Today's question is from Justin A. in our Discord community. Justin asked, I just wanted to share my experience as far as negotiating a deal. After listening to one of Dan and Ron's podcast on sales, particularly sticking to your number, I had a seller's realtor contact me asking for $8,000 more. I stuck to my number, and a few days later, the seller agreed to the original price. Before listening to the podcast, I was going to call back and go higher immediately on my original, and I'm glad I did not.
Yeah, this is, I guess, not really a question, but that's a great experience. And that's a great example of like what sticking to your guns can do, especially in this market right now. People, if they're calling you back and negotiating at all, they want to sell their land for one. They're motivated to sell their land. And more times than not, they need some money. So sticking to your guns, not necessarily sticking 100% to the dollar of what you offered, but if your offer is 9,300 and they're asking for 16,000, like saying, listen, I can go up to 10. That's as much as I can do. If you want it, great. If not, like we got to stick there. And more times than not, they're going to say, yes, that sounds good. We'll do that. How fast can you close? And then they get into like, how fast can I get my money, my $10,000? So really appreciate you sharing that, Justin. And if you guys are out there and in these situations, sticking to your guns, being confident with your number is a really, really good trade to have, and it's going to make you a ton of money.
That being said, the more experience you have and the better pricing you have, that's easier said than done. If your pricing's all over the place, I wouldn't be as confident. But like Ron said, more times than not, they're just fishing for more money and they're going to take it no matter what, or you're going to meet somewhere in the middle. It's just really, you got to feel the people out. You got to feel the energy, what they actually want, their motivation, and then go from there. Other than that, Ron, let's get into today's show, subdividing your land for extra profit. Let's get into it, Ron. I want to start with talking about different types of subdivisions.
Yeah, for sure. So what we're talking about when subdividing, and there are subdivisions for massive, like actual subdivision, HOAs, all that stuff, and little 1 acre parcels. The thing about subdividing into 1 acre parcels is you're going to run into a lot of restrictions. You're going to need to put utilities, roads, usually stuff like that is going to be really, really expensive, and you can lose money on those deals. But what I'm talking about when subdividing is a minor subdivision. Most counties define minor subdivisions in different ways, but it's usually like breaking your 50 acre purchase into 5-10 acre purchases. And that's where you can 3-4x your money, even when you are buying at 75% of market value. And we've been talking, Dan, so much about big deals. I think these deals are going to pop up and these opportunities are going to pop up for a ton of our members and a ton of you who are listening, because how much we've been talking about, like, let's do some big deals. Let's do big deals.
I agree. And, there's the main two ways to subdivide, Ron. There's minor and major, and there's a lot more than that. And there's rezoning subdivisions and things like that as well. But there are subdivisions that we don't recommend, especially at first, that you can make a lot of money in it, but you can actually build out a legitimate subdivision, like a legitimate
Yep.
subdivision, taking 100 acres or taking 20 acres and building or subdividing it to 200 different parcels and putting upon like there's that type of subdivision, major subdivisions. Then Ron's talking about what we recommend, minor subdivisions. Let's take that 100 acre property, slice it up into 10 acre properties, because there's 5,000 or 2,000 feet of road frontage. You just cut it down the middle. There's simple subdivisions like that as well. And that is where, like Ron's saying, you can buy super expensive in relative, you're still getting a good deal. It's less than market value, obviously, but expensive to, it's not 40% like we're used to. You can buy it 60, 70, 80% because the property is beautiful, slice it up and make 250, 300% back on your money. Now, there is a longer turn time on that run. So let's get into that a little bit, like what that timeline looks like. But like from a sustainability and profit aspect, you're adding a lot of value to the world. You're creating something that was never there. there's a future buyer who would love that 10-acre property that didn't want 100-acre properties. Like there's a lot of value add there, and the profit and sustainability all make sense from there, Ron. And that's why I really like this option.
Yeah. So a couple things that can, or the two main things that are going to make this process take longer are the survey. And then you also need to sell 5, 10 properties opposed to just selling one. You might not get your money back until you sell 3 properties or something like that. If let's keep that 100 acres down into 10 acres. You might not get your money back till you sell 3 or 4 of those 10-acre parcels. And that's going to take longer, obviously. Selling 10 properties, it's going to take longer than selling one 100-acre parcel. That being said, and the survey is going to take a while. Getting survey contacts or like doing this, being specialized in this in an area, I think is extremely valuable. You are going to be able to get a ton of deals if you're willing to pay 75, 80% of market value. Buy that, split it up, have a survey, keep a survey guy busy, or give him a deal once a month where he can do this for you. And usually they are going to know what the county requires. How are we going to get those 10 different APNs? One thing, though, Dan, that I see a lot of people doing, and we've done it before, is starting to post it like survey is in process. Here are my 10 lots we're going to have. Let's get this posted and then let's get some interested buyers lined up. So once that survey is done, like you can start just filling the buyer in. Like this is here you got lot 1, here's lot 2, and you could have 3 or 4 pre-sold before the survey is even complete.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think of that, Ron. It's just like, we emphasize listing your property the day you buy it,
You can
in
still
some
do that
capa
for sure. Draw
and you
some
can
lines,
still
a
do
map
that
right,
with
and estimate it.
subdividing.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Get some screenshots up. If you have a buyer's list in the area, realtors you've worked with, get it to them, let them know it's coming. Because guys, 10 acres at the end of the day is highly desirable, and there might be people looking for 10 acres. And if they know it's there in 3, 4, 5 months, they will put their money down right now and hold that property.
Mhm.
Like there are a lot of people out there, if they find their dream property, they will put their money down right now. And there's no reason to not market that premature from the subdivision date. But I wanted to get more into the side now, Ron, on why, how's the math work behind this? I guess why can you make so much extra money by subdividing?
Yeah, it's why you can go to Costco and buy 10 gallons of ice cream for, I don't know, $20, and then you buy a little cup of ice cream for $10 or $8 or something like that. Like it's a bulk discount. When you're buying 100 acres of something or 100 of something, it's going to cost less per piece per acre than buying 10 of something. So, and that's anything in the entire world. If it's the identical things, you pay 100, you're buying 100 of one thing, it should cost you less per unit than 10 of another thing. And like I said, that's for anything. Um, so that's the mindset behind it. And numbers might look like, let's say 100 acres is market value at $400,000. 10 acres might go for uh 70,000 a piece or something like that, where that's $7,000 an acre versus $4,000 an acre for all 100. So that's what it looks like. And those are very simple numbers. Buy for 400,000, or maybe you got a discount. So we're buying at 70%, 75%, buy at 300,000. That's worth 400,000 right now. Let's not do that. Let's make it worth 700,000 and split this into 10 acre parcels.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just my mind's racing thinking of this because there's just so many opportunities.
Oh
Like,
my gosh.
imagine just if you had the capital to do it, Ron, imagine buying like 10,000 acres and then for the rest of your life, for like the next 20 years, just slowly chop it up and subdivide it and live off and you have a loan on the land or something, and you can live off the splitting and subdividing. You buy the 10,000 in bulk and then just start splitting it up slowly. And that's like your 20-year project. There's so many
Oh
different
my
ways
goodness.
to.
Like if you just learn land a little bit, guys, like there is so much opportunity to not have to really work. Like that is a very realistic thing. Obviously buying 10,000 acres is, I mean, it's going to cost $10 million, I'd imagine at least in most areas. If you're in a good area, it's going to cost tens of millions of dollars. But that being said, like you can just make so much money off land. Just know understanding a little bit, understanding the regulations is important. But there is a limited amount of land in our country. There is an unlimited amount of parcels. There's two different things. There are more parcels in this country every single year because people are doing this, and there are so many more opportunities out there still. And those 10-acre parcels might eventually be split into 3-acre parcels or something like that, and someone might make money on that.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And man, that's really making me want to buy more land, Ron. From
Yeah.
I mean, we bought our first piece of land last for ourselves, personal land last year
And we
in
talked about splitting
Kentucky.
that.
And we talked about splitting that. We didn't yet, but I mean, the opportunity is always there. You can always split down the road if you own it for long term. But I mean, we want to buy more land in that area and we can subdivide it off and do things like that as well. And we love to do it. But I want to get into how do we even get started in subdividing for someone thinking about this, Ron? First off, if you guys haven't done any land deals, do a couple land deals
Yeah.
first. Get your feet wet. Let's start with the basics, Ron. I preached that on last week's episode. Do the basics, do them very well, and then let's start looking at these things. Now, if you have a 50-acre property that comes back with a ton of road frontage, you can split it, or the situation just aligns with what we're talking about. Let's do it. But I don't want to force this too prematurely. But let's talk about how to get started in subdividing, ground. You got to go after bigger properties.
Exactly. And don't target deals at first with this mindset. If you have a deal that comes up that like Ron Dan, like this makes 100% sense. I was listening to your podcast and this would be my second deal, but this makes sense to subdivide this. Like, okay, let's look at it then. But do not target this at first. Like Daniel said, do a few deals. How do you get started in it? It's different in each county. Like I said, not having a realtor contact is optional, I guess. Having a survey contact is very important, and understanding the regulations. There are regulations in this stuff. There might be tax write offs for that 50-acre parcel for them to never do something on it. I know states with like tax incentives to keep the land vacant or to keep 50 acre, 40 of it vacant or something like that, where you cannot subdivide. So make sure you understand the county regulations and then the regulations within that parcel, even.
Yeah, and
And
there
then
was a
road frontage,
county.
sorry, the road frontage regulations, some of them are going to say like you need a certain amount of road frontage to do this. You cannot subdivide if you don't have X amount of road frontage. Every parcel needs to have a certain amount of road frontage. So knowing the county regulations is really, really important.
Yeah, but it is important, but it's also easy. Like they have this well documented. You just need to get the documentation showing
Yep.
the regulations on subdividing. Like that is they're going to have pages on that typically, and you can find it and you can
Yep.
figure out what how much road frontage do you need, how big the land. There's one county, Shelby County, Kentucky. It was almost impossible from what our realtor told me to split anything under 5 acres because
Yep.
that county wants to preserve land. They don't want it split, so it's a county regulation, you can't split outside city limits under 5 acres, so every property is 5 acres or more, if it didn't get approved, so there's just no subdividing really allowed in that county. As they grow, I'm sure things will change,
Yep.
but there are counties where you just can't really do that, so like Ron said, it's very important before you start this project and start getting excited and calling your surveyors from what we're saying to, always check and do your due diligence first.
If you have a survey contact, you don't just call a survey person and just like ask them. Like if you have a deal for them, great. Like talk to them about it. But that being said, like it is a good person to use in terms of these restrictions and regulations within the county. They're going to understand like what they can do, what needs to be done to get 10 different APNs within this 100-acre parcel. Real quick, Dan, what are your thoughts? So we talked about like those big subdivisions and we talked where it's tiny little parcels, half an acre, quarter acre parcels. We talked about 100 acres into 10-acre parcels with a lot of road frontage. What are your thoughts? And it's a little more advanced, but I think there's so much opportunity too to add maybe a dirt road. Like maybe you don't have the road frontage, but it's a really deep property where you could make a dirt road go all along that. I guess that's somewhere in between like the two things that we're talking about because there's another element you're going to have to clear a road out.
Yeah, I think in general, the more value you add to the property, the more payout. As long as you're putting the energy into the right spots, the more payout you're going to have at the end. Now, if you have to put a road down the middle and split it on both sides, and maybe you put a road down the center of the 100 acres, then on both sides you have,
Yep.
five 10-acre properties on one side, five 10-acre properties, and the road going through the middle, paved gravel, whatever it is. That's a ton of value. And that's like a little subdivision. They're going to love that. It's going to be nice and exclusive. You can chop it up properly. I think there's a ton of value in that, Ron.
The problem is the road maintenance with that. And that's the problem. Like if you do a gravel road, it is going to be expensive, like very, very expensive. It's like $2 or $3 per square foot for a gravel, like a driveway or something like that. If you're just clearing out like a dirt path, it's going to obviously get overgrown after a certain amount, and the county is not going to maintain that unless you can always talk to them and see what their thoughts are, but then that's going to get into the major part. But yeah, I can think of quite a few deals that we didn't end up subdividing that was like 80 acres and really deep, but you didn't have enough road frontage to really do it, where you could chop that up into 10 8-acre parcels really easily if you just put a dirt road or something down one side.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. I just feel like if you guys aren't looking this way, hopefully this opened their minds up, Ron, and opened everyone's minds up to start looking for subdivisions when it makes sense. Now, that being said, it can be a lot harder to do that when, you have $100,000 property you can list right now and sell for 220, but it
Mhm.
makes sense to subdivide. But you also see that $120,000 of profit in your, right there in front of you. And that's why we see a lot of times people just are like, oh, let's just flip it for, $100,000 of profit. But that could have been $350,000 if you waited 8 months to do the process.
Yep. And if you have deals that like make sense for this, bring it to us. I'd love to look at these deals. I really enjoy that. I love this part of improving land. We're bringing a ton of value to the county, to the area when we're giving them more opportunities for people to live on these. It's not in these rural counties, like not anyone's just going to go in and put a road or subdivide it. It's a lot of work and time and effort put in. But that being said, I love partnering on deals like this, Dan, because there's so much opportunity and there's a huge value add piece.
And most of these counties, Ron, they only have so many limited. There's a lack of well-priced 5, 10, 20 acre
Yep.
properties always. Like we only see, like if you look at for sale in these counties, a lot of times 90% of them are way overpriced and 10% of are priced right and going to sell. But of that 10% that's priced right, like how many actually good properties do you have? It just these
They're priced
good
right
land
for
is
three
not that easy
days.
to come by.
They're priced right for 3, 6 days, and then they're
Yeah.
gone because they're sold. Like that's what
Yeah.
happens so fast on these 4 to 10 acre parcels. I'm excited to see what this brings. I think
The
a lot of
demand is
people are
there.
going. There's going to be a lot of money made on these deals.
Yeah, and then you can buy more properties too because you're offering 70% instead of offering 40%. So you can get more specific land paying 70%. That's why the math makes sense. You can price higher and then have a plan for an exit on the end. And you just
For sure.
got to get more specific on the buy side for sure. This is a niche, it's a specialty, and
Mhm.
there's a lot that's going to come up from when this idea you're creating in your head right now to actually completing the project. A lot of things will come between that, but this is pretty much the process in total.
Awesome. I don't have anything to add, Dan.
As always, thank you for joining. Please do us a huge favor and like and subscribe our YouTube channel and share this with a friend. It really means the world to Ron and I, but more importantly, it could help change the life of someone else. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next episode.